Well, welcome everyone from around Australia, New Zealand, joining into the webinar today. It's going to be a bit of fun. It might be a little bit stressful, some would say, but good stress. We're gonna get into some good things. I've been really looking forward to this one because hermetic stress is such a powerful part of our life when we start to implement it every single day. And you know, we've got Lisa. I'll intro you properly in a minute, but man, you've been through some stress in some of the things you've been doing. It's crazy. And Bruce, it's good to have you on board as well. So everyone's coming online. We've got a lot to get through. So I think we're just going to get started. Hormetic Stress Masterclass. We're going to be talking about some exciting things today. And who are we? I'm Alex Tyson. Howdy, CEO at Found Space. We've got Bruce Jones, Found Space New Zealand General Manager. Hey, mate. And we've got Lisa Tamati, runner, author, speaker. You do so much more than that, Lisa, but I had to condense it down to 3 words. It's a pleasure to have you guys here. A little bit more detail on who we are. I'm Alex Tyson, CEO, Found Space. Since I've been involved at Found Space running it, the business has tripled in revenue. It's been a busy time. I'm the author of the book, Health Supercharged, to help you take your health to a higher level. I host the Finding Space podcast. We've had almost 20,000 listens now. Yesterday, we were the 58th highest ranked health podcast in the world on Apple, which is pretty cool. We're getting there.
Yay!
I've done 2 water fasts, 21 days or more. I know how to go to some extremes, and I'm a soon-to-be dad, which is very, very exciting. So that's me. Bruce, Found Space New Zealand General Manager. You and I have been working together for 6 years now, and you've been critical to the business growing and developing the way that it has. So thank you. Now I hope I got the language here right, but Australian Masters League Victorian CrossFit champion and 3rd in Australia. Am I getting that right?
You're correct. Yes.
Excellent.
in my age group and division, can I just put the caveat in there?
Absolutely. Yeah. But that's awesome, man. I love it. And husband, grandfather, and father of 2, both of which are very beautiful children. And I put in a little quote of yours, which may not truly be yours. I don't know. But what you focus on expands. Whenever I think of that, I think about you. And we're going to talk a bit about mindset later. And I think that's a really, really good quote. So pleasure to have you here, mate. Great. And Lisa, professional ultra endurance athlete. You've run 140 ultra marathons. Can we just sit on that for a moment? 140 ultra marathons. That is insane.
Yep.
Like
it just means I've got some mental issues. You have to be crazy to do that, right?
Yeah. I'm excited to when we talk about mindset a little bit later. I think you'll have a lot to say there. You're the author of 2 international best-selling running books, and motivational speaker, health optimization coach, and mum of 2.
Well, I've lost my babies, so we didn't quite make to be the actual mum. We've had a rough road. We've had a rough road on that front. So talk about stresses. We've definitely been there on that front.
That's life, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is.
Beautiful. So that's who we are. And now today, what are we going to talk about? We're going to talk about the power of hormesis. We're going to uncover what that really is, and how we can apply it in our lives. Specifically, we're going to look at 4 areas. We're going to look at exercise stress, heat stress, cold stress, and a little bit about nutritional stress as well, which doesn't actually always mean putting things in from a nutritional standpoint, but I'm actually keen to talk to that bit because there's some cool stuff in there as well. We're going to talk about how the rubber hits the road, you know, how to actually apply this stuff in your day-to-day life, because it's one thing to understand the science and understand the mechanisms that are happening within the body, but unless we actually start applying that tomorrow or this afternoon even, we're not actually going to get the benefits in our life. And ultimately, we want you guys to come out with 4 or 5 action items from this webinar, so you can actually go and start doing some things right away, because that's actually what we need to do. And then we look forward. We'll talk a little bit about how everyone watching can work with Found Space and work with Lisa a little bit more after the webinar. So that's what we're going to cover today. I hope everyone's excited. I'm seeing, our chat's disabled again. This is a very challenging thing we seem to come up against. So if anyone has any questions or things they want to mention, put it in the Q&A in Zoom. Sorry about that, guys. Yeah. Oh, it's there. It's working for you, Lisa. That's
working,
good.
Yeah, I just did
Okay.
it too. So it is working. Yep.
Yeah. Sorry, Pat. I'm not sure what's going on there, mate, but we'll get there. Okay, cool. Let's get into it. So first of all, the power of hormesis. I got this great definition of hormesis off PubMed, which I really like. Hormesis is an adaptive response of cells and organisms to a moderate and usually intermittent stress. Right. So
same definition.
Yeah. And it's a great one because that it gives us an idea of what that is. You know, we talked about this webinar being about like stress that is good for us. And there is stress that is good for us. And the key there is that it's usually intermittent, right? If it's ongoing and it becomes chronic, that's not good.
Yeah.
That's when things start to fall apart. And I also put in there about changing your gene expression, because a lot of the benefits of forms of hormesis, especially the ones we'll talk about today, come through the activation of certain genomes and changing the expression of our genes through certain genetic pathways. That's where the real benefit comes in. So we're going to talk about things like reactive oxygen species and AMPK pathways and NRF2 pathways. And these are the things that ultimately, when they're activated within the body, can help us live longer and healthier. And we actually find that there's some real similarities between all these forms of hormesis and how they can help us live healthier and longer. So I thought I'd add that in there. So we're going to start with probably my favorite one. We're going to talk about heat stress for a little bit. Now, Lisa, at any point, jump in here. You know, you've got a wealth of knowledge here. So I want us to have a really good discussion today between the three of us and our own skill sets. So I've got here the physiology of heat stress. So what's actually happening when we're stressing our body under heat? We're activating heat shock proteins in certain environments, and we'll talk to that. There's mitochondrial biogenesis, right? So we're quite literally making more mitochondria, which can help translate to more energy. There's a degree of cardiovascular work that's happening when we're in a sauna of whatever kind we're talking about, or even in extremely hot environments or a hot bath. There's an endocrine response that's happening. There's nervous system activation, both sympathetic and parasympathetic, depending on the type of environment, and specifically depending on the temperatures. We can activate human growth hormone as well. And I put down there as well the health benefits. There are many more than this, but if we were to go in depth on all of them, this webinar would go for about 11 hours.
Yeah.
You know, there's entire books on it, one of them being mine, I know. So I just focused on a couple here, which I thought were particularly interesting. The first one for me is about brain health and Alzheimer's. And there was the kind of famous study, which Lisa, you and I have spoken a little bit about, was I think it's called the KID study, KIHD, I think it is, out of Finland. And there was like 2,300 kind of men that were studied for a period of time. And
20 odd years.
Yeah. And one of the things that came out of that was I've got it over here, reduction in Alzheimer's. So 4 to 7 times per week is how often these people were using the sauna. They were 67% less likely to develop Alzheimer's compared to 1 sauna a week. Like this is a big deal. I mean, I personally have a real strong, I guess, emotion around Alzheimer's and brain degenerative diseases, because I've seen my dad go through it. But just in general, it's a massive deal. Specifically with this study, the 4 to 7 per week people that were using the sauna at 78 degrees for, I think it was, I want to say 30 minutes. It was 20 or 30 minutes, can't remember exactly. So it's quite hot. And in this environment, the heat stress activated BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which promotes neurogenesis. So it actually helps build new neurons in the brain. And it was interesting that it was, as we'll see a lot with hormetic stresses, is that it was dose dependent. So the group that used it 4 to 7 times per week was 67% less likely to develop Alzheimer's compared to the people who used it once a week. What would be an interesting stat there is the people who use it once a week, how less likely they were to develop it compared with people who didn't use it at all. And I imagine that would be a significant percentage as well. Yeah. So what we're seeing is from a brain standpoint, this hot stress and being in a hot environment has some pretty powerful benefits in that space. You guys have anything you want to add to that? Anything I may have missed?
Yeah, I'm really big on brain health too, because like you and with your dad, I've got a mum who had a massive aneurysm and stroke, and so brain health is one of my big things, and also looking at genetics. So if you are someone who, for example, who has the ApoE 3.4 or 4.4 variant, and you have a higher likelihood of Alzheimer's, then this is really, really important for you to be taking this stuff seriously. Or if if you've had repeated brain injuries, so like I've got a brother who's had repeated brain injuries through rugby playing, those are the people that I really want to get across just how important repeated sauna use is to build up that BDNF. That BDNF is just an absolute, and again, the BDNF is genetically dependent, how much you produce, but you can influence, and this is where genetics, which I study, versus in epigenetics, you can influence, even though you might not have the best BDNF gene, which is a GG allele of that gene, which means that you make more BDNF. You can influence that by doing things that are in your environment that help that. One example being the sauna. So for me, sauna use, I've definitely put that in the mix for me for maintaining my own brain health. And it's a hormetic stress that, it's just one of those easy wins for people to protect their brain going forward. And also on the whole human growth hormone side of the equation as well, there was a study that came out when you actually have 3 days in a row of sauna use, the amount of human growth hormone that came out on the 3rd day of using the sauna was something like 1,600%. And these are short sort of spikes in human growth hormone that come naturally. So it's not like you're taking a human growth hormone, which has negative side effects as well. This is natural endogenous production. It goes up very shortly. So having that repeated exposure, and sometimes like I try to do it 3 days in a row in order to get that increase in that human growth hormone as well as the BDNF, that's a really, really important thing too, I think.
Yeah. Well, I'm sauning most. I sauna 6 days a week, so my human growth hormone must be through the roof. So that's exciting.
Well, that's why you win CrossFit competitions and stuff.
I think that the key with this, as it is with when we talk about exercise, it's the regularity. And sometimes people ask me, like what's a good amount of time to sauna, and as in how many times a week, and I use the exercise analogy. I mean, if you start, let's say you're relatively sedentary and you start exercising and, you start doing it, once a week, that's okay. And it's better than not doing anything. However, you really see the advantages, as the study showed, by doing 4 or more times a week. And that's the key, is to actually create the habit to start doing it 4 or more times a week.
Yeah, spot on, man. Cool. Another element of sauna is, in fact, in some ways, probably the biggest, is the cardiovascular side of things. Again, in that study out of Finland, 2 to 3 times per week were 22% less likely to die from sudden cardiac death. 4 to 7 times per week were 63% less likely to die from sudden cardiac death. That is massive.
Yeah.
Like, huge.
Yep.
From sitting in a hot room, 4 to 7 times a week. And there you go. It was at 78 degrees for 20 minutes. So this study was done in traditional sauna. So it would have been a steam sauna, pretty hot, pretty intense. Their body would have been working, and you can feel it. I'm sitting in infrared sauna now. not that it's on, but even in infrared sauna, like when you push this thing hot, you're working. Like, yeah,
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's an exercise mimetic, you know. So for
Yeah.
people, I like it too, for people who can't exercise for whatever reason, you know, people who are elderly or, you know, have an injury or something like that, then it can be very beneficial to get that exercise mimetic part of the thing going as well, because it is mimicking you going for a run, because your heart rate's up, your blood pressure's up, you know. And obviously, you know, check with your doctor, especially if you're elderly. You want to make sure that you're able to cope with this hormetic stress, because that's a point that we need to bring up, that only people who can respond to a hormetic stress will get these benefits. And there are certain people who are beyond that, who are too sick, and that will be too big a stress. So we do have to sort of, you know, say, you know, obviously this is not medical advice, and check with your doctor and all of that sort of jazz. If you're a very, you know, if you're elderly, if you've got any health conditions, then you do need to check, obviously. Same with you starting an exercise program or a nutrition program. All of these things are supposing that you are coming from a relatively good health space, and you can actually, you know, react and adapt to this hormetic stress. Because when we're doing hormetic stress, this is a temporary pulling you out of a homeostatic state into a state of slight alarm, and then the body reacts to that by increasing certain transcription factors, making different proteins, making new muscles, whatever the case may be. And that causes you to become more resilient and stronger. And that's the whole point of a hormetic stress. But you have to be able to respond to that hormetic stress. And therefore, there are certain people that had, you know, like with my mum, for example, who's 81 and who's had a massive brain injury, I'll put her in an infrared sauna, but only for 5 to 10 minutes, because that's all she can take, because she has blood pressure, she has cardiovascular issues, and so on and so forth. So I have to be very careful. Same with, you know, her doing hyperbaric or anything else. I've got to build up that resilience first. So just take that into account. You have to be able to adapt to that hormetic stress first.
Yeah. That's a really good point, Lisa. And I believe one of the benefits of infrared sauna, in fact, because it doesn't have to be so hot.
Yeah.
So for people who do have a potential contraindication or are older and need to build up that adaptation, infrared sauna, you can get in here and have a bit of a sweat at 45 degrees.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
You don't need to be in there at 78 degrees for 20 minutes, which even for me, like, I'm a pretty fit guy, but 78 degrees for 20 minutes is,
hardcore,
for lack of a better expression, it's fucking hard work. Like, it's hard.
You know, you've done it, afterwards. And I, you know, like on that point, I don't think you need to always go to the extremes. I'm an extreme person. I do everything extreme. But as I've gotten older, I've started, funny that, Bruce. As I've gotten older, I've realized the benefit of lower level interventions. It doesn't have to be at the extreme end. And this actually plays into that whole hormetic. Everything is a toxin in the wrong dose. And that includes exercise, and that includes food, and that includes heat, and that includes everything, right? At the right dose, at a lower dose, can have a really positive effect. So not always harder is better. And I used to be a very much go hard or go home person. I've modified that, you know, and there are times when you need to go hard. You know, if you're in a CrossFit competition with Bruce, you better go hard. But if you're, you know, on a day-to-day, it doesn't always have to be at that level. Anything is better than nothing. And sometimes that lower level intervention, those lower levels of exercise, sauna, and what actually bring as much benefit as you going hard out. I just had a client today, for example, who's dealing with, you know, menopause and hormones and so on. And for her, doing HIIT training just sends her backwards. Okay, we pull back on the HIIT training and we go a little gentler for a while her body's going through the stress. So it's being sensible, not always just being a hard ass, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm the same, Lisa. Like like it's about, when we talk about CrossFit, there's kind of 3 levels. There's practice.
Yeah.
So there's practicing certain movements, and then there's training, and then there's competing, right? So most of the time you're in that practice and training window. The competing is just such a small amount. So It's when you want to try and do, you know, a PR on a certain workout, or you are actually competing. Yes, you go hard, but on a day-to-day basis, when I'm training, I'm just training. Like, yeah, I'm pushing my body, but I think as we get a bit older, you get a little wiser as well.
Yeah, you do, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah, when shit starts falling to bits, then you're like, hang on, I've got to do things differently in order to bring this into line.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Love that. Yeah. I guess to finish up on the heat stress, we'll keep on moving. There's also some cool studies being done on blood sugar and the effect on insulin resistance. There was actually a study specifically done on infrared sauna. I've got one cited here about one which was done on diabetic mice, which for some reason just makes me think of a really cute study. I don't know why, but fasted blood insulin levels in diabetic mice shown to decrease 31% after 3 heat sessions per week for 12 weeks.
And insulin resistance is epidemic. You know, I work in that metabolic dysregulation space with a lot of my clients. And, you know, metabolic dysregulation in your 40s and 50s is absolutely rife because we have, you know, too much food. Basically, we're all, you know, too much carbs, too much food, too much grains, too much all of that sort of good stuff. And so anything that's going to make you more insulin sensitive is probably good for most of us, because most of us are on that scale towards of insulin resistance, and some make it to type 2 diabetes, which is really a disaster. But on that continuum, there's a lot of us, you know, who are metabolically got some dysregulation going on once you hit your 40s. Yeah. So if you can, you know, if you've got a bit of a muffin top, if you've got fat around the middle, that's sort of the poor man's way of thinking, yep, I've got some insulin resistance going on and I need to work on that factor. And yeah, we could do a whole webinar on insulin resistance, but anything that can make you more insulin sensitive is something you want to put into your anti-aging regime for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, spot on. You want to live healthier, you want to live longer, have lower levels of glucose in your blood across your life.
Exactly. Yeah.
Couple last little caveats on heat stress. If you're in a sauna, stay hydrated. It's super important. Don't go in there if you're dehydrated. Don't go in there after having a big bowl of rice. Right? They're not going to help. Yeah, take it easy. Like, there's some contraindications around if you have a pacemaker, like, don't go in an 80-degree sauna. You know, if you're pregnant, take it easy, especially if you're not. I don't have a problem, and there's science going both ways, I guess. But if you are adapted to the heat, I have no issues with people using the sauna in the early stages of pregnancy, maybe the first or the second trimester. But if you're not adapted to the heat, don't introduce heat stress during a time of pregnancy. And lastly, children, they haven't fully adapted their heat response. So if you're in a sauna, lower temperature, shorter amount of time, you know, 15 minutes at 40 degrees will do until they're older and they can actually properly sweat and deal with the heat. So that's heat. Now, let's move on to exercise. I had to laugh here because when I was almost going to start writing down the health benefits of exercise, and I thought, I'm not doing that. I'm not freaking doing it. Like, if I need to write that down for people, you know, so I put in some specific things there in the physiology, you know, especially in terms of like hormesis, like we're activating reactive oxygen species, which then activate certain gene pathways such as MAPK and NF and PGC1 alpha. Through doing this, we also raise NAD plus levels. NAD is a really critical piece in giving us more energy. Ultimately, it helps the cell do what it needs to do to create ATP. So that's some of the physiology. I mean, the list is extremely long. Those are the things that I thought were specific to this piece here. I didn't write down the health benefits because I thought that was insulting for people, but I kind of wanted to throw it over to you, Lisa, in terms of like some specifics around exercise. I mean, you were talking about high intensity interval training, but I'm curious to hear more about that and maybe some of the other things that you do with clients in this space. Yeah.
So, I mean, obviously a history with ultra marathons. And I didn't know this back when I was doing ultra marathons. I always thought the more exercise you did, the better, and you'll get fitter, you'll get stronger. And if you weren't improving, you just go harder. It was my mentality for 20, 30 years, right? And that's not true. Now, again, there's a genetic component. And when I studied genetics, I realized I had certain genes that meant that I had a very inflammatory response to things like exercise, as well as toxins and poor detox, poor methylation pathways and so on. So there's a genetic aspect as to how much exercise you can take and what type of exercise. And then there's the whole circadian rhythm piece of the puzzle about what time of the day to do your exercise as well. So, if anyone wants to go into a deep dive with me on that, that's, the sort of stuff I do. But from my own personal experience of doing ultra marathons for decades, I was always in an inflamed state. My hormones were always unbalanced. I always had extra weight. I held fluid, and I never knew why. And I never knew any different until I studied genetics and went, oh, you're kidding me. I've been doing the wrong type of exercise, which was over inflaming my body because I was overwhelming. It was not a hormetic stress. It was a stress, and it was a chronic stress because I was doing it for decades, day in, day out. And that was detrimental to my aging process, to my fertility, all of these sort of different aspects that affected. So exercise is not always go hard, go home, do more, longer's better. It really depends on your genetics, your stage of life, your hormones, what nutrient levels you have, your detox pathways, etc. But without going into all of the detail of that, what I think is important to understand is that humans are made to move. If we don't move, but we were given the perfect food and the perfect levels of stress and the perfect everything else, but we lay in bed and did nothing, we would turn to soup. We need to exercise, and we need to do that in every day of our life to a certain degree, right? We need periods of rest and recovery, and then we need periods of movement. And so just getting that base sort of principle in your head, and that doesn't mean you have to go, like we said, hard out every day. What you need is a mixture. So I like to do things that, measure my HRV every day and sort of see where I'm at, look at my sleep scores and things like that, so that I know how much I can take today. If I've had I had a really good sleep last night. So this morning I was like, oh, my HRV is good. I had a good sleep score. I'm well hydrated. I'm going to go hard in the gym today. So that I did. I went hard in the gym and I felt really on top of the world. If my sleep score was poor and my HRV was in the toilet, then I go to the gym and smash myself anyway. When I'm perhaps dehydrated, I perhaps had a drink last night, or I stayed up late and watched Netflix, and I traveled and I had a hell of a stressful day, and then I go and smash myself at the gym. That's not a hormetic stress then. And so it's dosing it right. And I'm really keen for people to understand, it's getting outside the bounds of this webinar, but understanding that different types of exercise need to be in the mix. One of the mistakes that I made as an ultramarathoner in the early part of my career especially was I just ran. I needed to run long, so that's all I did. I didn't do any strength training. I didn't do any mobility training. I didn't do any functional exercises, no yoga, no anything except running long and slow, because that's what I was doing. That was a mistake, but that led to muscle wasting. I had a flaccid upper body, really strong, powerful legs. Great for that, good cardiovascular fitness, but at the expense of others. Now I try to keep a real balanced, functional approach to my training, so that I'm in my mid 50s now, and that I can still, do a headstand and the splits, and I can still do pull-ups, and I can still run fast when I need to. I can't run 200K plus like I used to. That's the trade-off. But I can now do things that I couldn't do 10 years ago, because I'm bringing in that mixture of training. And for me at this age, and it depends at what stage you guys are at, it's bringing in the right combination of exercise to get the benefits for the goal that you're going after, So
So what I'm really hearing is the importance of real diversity of exercise here. If you were to cookie cutter a little bit and just say like what are 2 or 3 different kinds of exercises that we can be thinking about during the week?
Yeah, again, looking at, again, genetics, a big part of this. But I would be, for me personally, I do a lot of HIIT training. So I do a lot of CrossFit style. I don't do the competitions, but I do CrossFit style training. So where I'm doing sort of high intensity, strength-based, a lot of body weight exercises, a lot of functional exercises, combined with a couple of, I do yoga every day. That's a part of my thing. And then I do a number of cardio sessions a week, 2, 3, 4 cardio sessions a week. So yeah, I mean, you don't have to do as much as that. I'm doing 3 or 4 cardios, 3 or 4 strength and daily yoga. But that combination is gold, right? That combination of mobility, and like for anyone who's a runner out there, you need the strength and the yoga to be the foundation for you to have permission, if I was your coach, to run the miles. Does that make sense? If you go out and just do the mileage without doing the strength and the mobility work, that's when the injuries come into play. Not counting food and nutrition and all the other sorts of things. But I think, just coming back to this point of we need to exercise, and anything is better than nothing. So get out there, everybody. And I don't care if you're 90 or 100. My mum is 81. She's been through hell with an aneurysm, a stroke, cancer. And she's sitting on the bike right now in the next room waiting for me, and she's doing her exercycle bike work. That's after that being at the gym. And then afterwards she'll get in the hyperbaric, and then we'll go for a walk. She has to train all day, every day. And it's low level, but that's the way she's rehabilitated back from, against all odds, what I might say, and everybody, she's been written off so many times and been told that she's dying so many times. Mum just ignores them now. And if I took the camera over there, you'd see her sitting on the bike going for it, So there's no excuse for those 80 and 90-year-olds sitting out there. There's something you can do. I had a really cool story, if I just bring it in briefly. I ran right for New Zealand, and I did this for a charity. And during this, I had a challenge to schools to run a K a day with me while I was running through the country. But a lot of the rest homes picked up the challenge. And I had literally 90-year-olds who were wheelchair bound, doing circuits in their wheelchairs, or getting up and if they could walk to the end of the hallway and back, and whatever they could do to challenge themselves, they were doing, and they were excited to be a part of a challenge. They were excited to be doing something positive. I'm very big on healthy aging for people who are in our rest homes, who are in, have disabilities. They can do something. We can all do something, So don't write yourself off as being, I'm too old for all of that stuff that they're talking about. No, that's no excuse. If you were in my camp, you'd be training something. There'd be something we'd find to do.
Yeah. No, amazing. Totally agree. And I think Bruce is in the same space there. Let's keep moving. Cold stress. Yeah. Which is ironic. I've just turned the heaters on in here just to warm myself up a little bit, but cold. Yeah, again, we're going to talk about some things that are similar to heat stress here, from a physiological standpoint. Instead of heat shock proteins, it's cold shock proteins. There's a release of norepinephrine in the cold, a little bit more than in the heat, although we do also get that in the heat. Vasoconstriction, so the blood vessels are tightening. Mitochondrial biogenesis, similar to heat stress. There's thermogenesis as well. And there's also the activation of reactive oxygen species, which is the same thing that we're seeing when we're going and exercising. From a health standpoint, again, the list is long with cold stress. There's building new neurons from an Alzheimer's perspective. I had to put that one up the top. Reduced inflammation and a reduction in depression and anxiety symptoms as well. A couple of weeks ago, I had Dr. Mark Harper on the Finding Space podcast, and he's an advocate for cold water swimming. He's a doctor in the UK, but he also does a bunch of work in Finland throughout the year studying cold water swimming and the benefits. And he said, Alex, I believe, although it hasn't been like scientifically linked. He believes that the reason that there is a reduction in depression and anxiety for people who are using cold water is actually because of the reduction of inflammation within their body. Coupled with that, when you particularly go cold water swimming, you do it with a group of people, and that sense of connection and community with people who are doing something hard, you're going through adversity with these people, gives these people an extra lift. And as we know, when we look at the work of the Blue Zones and Dan Buettner, like that sense of community is such an important piece of our overall health. So I thought it was really interesting linking that, the reduction in inflammation from being in the cold water and community coming together to help people feel less depressed and less anxious. What I've got here, C-reactive protein. One study showed athletes who underwent whole body cryotherapy after exercising had CRP levels 1/5 of the amount of those who didn't, which is pretty significant. Cryotherapy obviously is the cold air. Cryotherapy as a use case compared with ice water is it has to be much colder because the thermal capacity of air isn't anything that of water. So cryotherapy can be like minus 190 degrees or something like that. But yeah, so there was a real reduction in CRP levels after exercising in people who had cryotherapy. Their CRP levels still went up because they just exercised, but it didn't go up anywhere near as much as those who didn't. And the important thing there was they used it an hour after exercising, not immediately after exercising. And there are some articles suggesting that using ice bath immediately after exercising perhaps isn't to our benefit from an exercise standpoint. In terms of Alzheimer's, synaptic regeneration has been observed in mice and squirrels actually through triggering cold shock proteins via cold exposure. They came across that because they were studying squirrels who are hibernating, and they found that coming out of hibernation, that they were getting cold enough in there, and coming out of hibernation, they needed to regenerate certain synapses and things in the brain so they could get back to life. And then they proved that to be the case in mice who weren't hibernating as well, suggesting that it can be similar for ourselves. A couple other things I have here before I hand it over to you guys, if you have anything to add, is use cases. Ice bath, obviously. Cryotherapy, not the easiest thing to get to, but they are around nowadays. Cold water swimming. So talking to Mark Harper the other day, he said, Alex, the limits of vasoconstriction are actually around 20 degrees. So if we're going in the water at 14 degrees or we're going in the water at 2 degrees, we're getting the same amount, if you will, of vasoconstriction. Like they can't constrict anymore under 20 degrees. So I went for an ocean swim this morning, and the ocean's about 20 degrees here. And I thought, oh, this is actually quite nice. I'm getting that vasoconstriction, the same amount as I would if I had a really expensive ice bath out here and it was 2 degrees in the ice bath. So I share that because just having a cold shower, we know, helps in this space. And that's actually one of the great ways to get started, is to just start using a cold shower, 30 seconds at the end of your shower. And we'll talk a bit more about that later. So it's just about, similar with exercise, Lisa, it's like just exercise. It's actually the same with cold. Like just get in cold water, ideally cold water. Just get cold.
Just get cold for short periods of time. And, after doing ultra marathons, we'd always hop straight into cold water. I'd usually go to the beach at whatever time of the year and just jump in the water or the river or whatever. That separation of an hour is actually good, because you do want an inflammatory response after the exercise to some degree to cause that adaptation to happen. But then you want to shut it down. So, as an example, on that run through New Zealand, where I had to get up the next day and run another 70K and another 70K sort of thing day after day, that was a really important thing, to shut down the inflammation as fast as possible in that case, because I had to recover was more important than the adaptation that I was going to. So it's the same with exercise and then having vitamin C. You don't want to have it, just straight after, because it's going to take away from that adaptation that you're going for. You're wanting a bit of that, oxidative stress and that inflammatory response. It's always about how long that inflammatory response is. And people who have a lot of inflammation in the body, this is fantastic. So, we just been over in Tauranga in New Zealand, and we had the opportunity to have cold swims in the pool in the morning, and that was just the way that it changes your mood. You can't come out of an ice bath or a cold swim and be depressed. It's just like you feel like, you know, the actual getting in and the actual doing of it can be quite bloody horrible, let's be honest, especially that first shocker. But when you come out, if you can, even if it's just 2 minutes, 3 minutes, when you come out for the next 3-4 hours, you're chill, you're happy, you got those endorphins going. I don't know, but it's just, you feel so great. And that's worth it. That 4 hours of pleasure for that 2 minutes of pain, plus you're getting all these responses. It's a no-brainer. And cold showers I do every day. And that's a really good thing to do in the morning, because it gets all your cortisol up and your norepinephrine going, and that's when you want it. So the only caveat I want to say is don't do your cold water at 9 o'clock at night, okay? Because you don't want to lift up your cortisol at that time of the day. So, you know, where possible, maybe in the early part of the day or in the morning when you get up, that would be a perfect time to get that sort of thing underway. And then set you up for a cortisol release at the right time of the day and all of that sort of stuff.
Yeah, 100%. It's really
common, more, Lisa.
It's really. Oh, sorry, Bruce, you're going to go?
No, I was just going to say, Lisa, I'm the same. I cold shower every day. I mean, my normal morning routine is training, sauna, cold shower, and that's kind of one of the things that we've spoken about sometimes, Alex, is that stacking, and that's just a beautiful stack. And if I do that and I start the day with and I don't do this every day, but sometimes I'll just have a bulletproof coffee, and oh my God, you just feel so good. You're on such, and the energy is amazing. And then I'm not eating until, you know, kind of late morning or just whenever I'm hungry. And I cannot recommend it more. It's such a good way to start the day.
Yeah, I love that stack, Bruce. That's a really good thing, is putting one thing on top of another thing and another thing, and that combo. You know, because we all look at things in isolation, but in real life, it's always a synergy between things. And, you know, it's like that's what I have problems with, you know, double-blinded, placebo-controlled trials. It's all well and good, but life isn't like that. And I use this example of a plant. You know, here's the scientist looking at this plant that's half dead and not doing well because it's in toxic soil, it's dehydrated, and it's been in a dark space. And it's wondering why. Okay, so it puts water on it and then watches it for 2 weeks. It's not going to improve because it's in a toxic soil and it's in a dark cupboard and it's getting no sunlight. And then that goes, oh, well, that didn't work. The water didn't work. Well, let's take it out of the cupboard and put it in the sunshine and see what happens, but gives it no water and leaves it in the toxic soil. Again, it won't work. You do all of those things together and you've got a healthy plant. And the synergy between these things is the magic. So all these things in isolation are gold, but you put them together, like Bruce is talking with the stacking, and you know, we're off to the races. We can slow the aging curve. We can have a better health span. We can be stronger, more vital, and be happier as well. You know, so I love that. I love that stacking.
I have nothing else to add to that. Couldn't agree. Yeah. Maybe if we have time, we'll come back. I'd love to hear each of our own personal stacks that we like to do. Really quick to wrap up cold stress. Adaptation is a thing. If you get in the cold water 3 times, 2 to 3 times within a week, by the 3rd or 4th time, you're really going to notice it's much easier. It happens quite quickly in cold water. So, which is really, really good actually, because then you don't have to say as many swear words when you get in the ice bath on the 4th time. And you don't have to do it too long either. You don't have to be in there for 10, 20 minutes. You know, you can be if you're swimming somewhere, but it doesn't have to be too long. Even just a few minutes, if it's really, really cold, is gonna get you a lot of these physiological benefits.
Just one last thing on the cold stress. This is for the ladies who want nice skin. If you have the ice cold, even the shower on your face for a minute, that increases the collagen production in your face skin, and you can get a younger looking skin. So
well, Lisa, we've just lost all the women on the call today, and they're off to the shower.
Guys, you say the women. I didn't know that. I'm 100% going to be doing that. Like,
yeah, not only, it's not only just we're worried about wrinkles.
Totally.
That's
and there's also getting the cold water on the face actually immediately activates the parasympathetic nervous system as well.
Yes.
If you're going in the cold water, get in with your body, let that sit for 30 seconds, a minute, and then put the face in. Really good thing there. All right, let's move on. Lastly, nutritional stress. So I've put a couple things here. Again, the list is actually really, really long. But again, some of these things, which we'll talk about, they're activating certain genetic pathways, which you can probably talk more to, Lisa. I put the famous one here. I feel like I'm just channeling Rhonda Patrick when I talk about sulforaphane. But it is quite cool. It's activating certain pathways, anti-cancer via the NRF2 pathway. I didn't know that it's a good way to control blood glucose in type 2 diabetics, which I didn't know, but when I was doing some research for this, I came across that. Sulforaphane is something that's found in high quantities in seeds and sprouts. It's also the common one is like in the chopped broccoli, but I thought I'd put the seeds and sprouts in there because it actually talks to what sulforaphane is. So it's made from two components, which I'm not going to attempt to pronounce right now. But those components are really high in seeds and sprouts because the plant, when it is in seed form or it's just recently sprouted, the plant is actually undergoing a lot of stress during that time. And so what's the plant trying to do? It's trying to minimize the amount of things that are going to come and eat it. And so myrosinase, as an example, is really high at that point because it's a way to protect the plant from being eaten. And that is actually what causes a bit of stress in our gut, hence why I've put it in here as a hormetic stress. So seedlings, sprouts are really good, and the old chop your broccoli and wait 20 minutes and then eat it to get the sulforaphane levels to be high. But I just wanted to kind of make that link because David Sinclair talks a lot about eating stressed plants as well. And what he means by that is like, the plant's trying to do something. So it's put some enzymes in there to prevent it from being eaten or taken away and that kind of thing. Did you have something to add to that, Lisa?
Yeah. I mean, this has been my playground for a while too. I have an NMN supplement in my range of anti-aging longevity stuff, and I'm really, really keen for people to look into nicotinamide mononucleotide. Of course, David Sinclair's book Lifespan is just gold to read. There's another book that if people are interested in reading, by my friend Greg McPherson. He's a pharmacist, but he's written a book called Harnessing the 9 Hallmarks of Aging. Have to get him on your show, Alex, by the way.
Cool.
And he explains it in a beautiful way to what all this is about. But NMN is a precursor, just quickly, NMN is a precursor to NAD, and NAD is what helps our sirtuin genes repair DNA, among a lot of other jobs. It also helps us produce more ATP, which is our energy currency in the cells, and that goes down with age. So if you're struggling with your energy levels and things, this is something to try. It does a heck of a lot of other things as well, but I'm a big fan of NMN, and also a big fan of resveratrol. I like the trans resveratrol, and you must have it with a little bit of olive oil. I like to have it with olive oil or a little bit of yogurt or something. Just a mouthful, in order because it's a fat soluble, it needs fat to be fat soluble, right? It needs to activate that way. Resveratrol is, well known for being in red wine, and people are like, oh, okay, that's my excuse to drink red wine. Unfortunately, there's some really bad things about alcohol, and it breaks down into acetaldehyde, and that's really not good for anybody at any level. People don't like me saying that. I'm actually looking at another product, a keto-based R13-butane-diol as an alternative alcohol. So I won't go off on a tangent there, but I could.
I'm looking forward to trying that.
Yeah, I've got some coming, Bruce. So I'm really keen to try that. Sulforaphane. So again, like with having a mum with cancer, sulforaphane's been on my radar, and of course Rhonda Patrick's been on my radar for a couple of years. And sulforaphane is something that I take all the time. A mum takes 3 times a day. I do my own broccoli sprouts on a regular basis. And I think it's just one of those things, anything that's going to lower our risk of cancers. Cancers are just going through the bloody roof now because we are surrounded by toxins in our environment, and then there's genetic components, and then there's the food that we're eating and the pesticides and God knows what, you know, that we're exposed to. So prevention for me in the cancer, I've just written a book actually, which is actually an ebook interview series with some of the world's top metabolic approach cancer researchers and doctors. If anybody wants to have a curated resource in one place for the metabolic approach to cancer, that's over on my website. But sulforaphane is on all the protocols that I've seen in cancer reduction, as is resveratrol. So yeah, big players in that cancer prevention space. And just on that fasting thing, well, obviously Alex is more disciplined than I am. I've never done a 21-day fast, but that would be gold. You know, like intermittent fasting, I do pretty much every day. The longer fasts are very, very beneficial for our immune system, clearing out the old senescent cells, upregulating autophagy, getting rid of all the rubbish, you know, throwing out a whole lot of crap that's in our bodies. And there's real reasons to do the fasting, and it's not about weight loss per se. It's about actually, you know, kickstarting our immune system, getting more growth hormone, getting rid of, you know, more autophagy. All of these things are going to slow the aging process down. So you get that combination that's on that slide there, and you've got a pretty powerful combo. For slowing the aging process. You know, that's hitting a number of pathways there.
Yeah, spot on. And just to touch on NMN briefly, when I really noticed actually when I started taking NMN, it just seemed like my cognition was elevated. It's like, oh, I didn't think I would notice it, but I did. Yeah. And like you said, we talk about a stack, you know, like I'm seeing like fasted in the morning, exercise, into a sauna, NMN, resveratrol, and a little bit of yoga. Don't eat until, you know, lunchtime. These kind of things. It's starting to get pretty sexy. So those are the 4 hormetic stresses. We've covered them. Great. Let's move on. So I'm going to hand it over to you now, Bruce, for a little bit, and well, to all of us, but to Bruce, the mindset, how to get started in this space, because we've talked about a lot of stuff there, and there's a lot to kind of think about and understand. But unless we get the mind right, nothing's going to happen. So over to you.
Thank you. Look, I'm just going to start by, I suppose, just sharing a couple of my experiences. And, you know, mentioned before about, you know, I've had some success in the CrossFit space. I remember seeing CrossFit, you know, over 10 years ago, and it was 10 years ago, it was not really well known. And you got online and all you saw was these, like, what looked like freaks doing this amazing stuff, you know, throwing these kettlebells around and doing, you know, muscle ups and all this Olympic lifting and crazy stuff. And I was like, oh, geez, like, I'm just never going to be able to do anything like any of these, you know, any of these guys and girls are doing. And, but I mean, somehow I kind of mustered up the courage to start. And it was actually, so it was 2010 that I started doing it. And again, it was still fairly new, certainly in Australia. And I had no idea, like, I had no idea how to do an Olympic lift, you know, so a snatch or a clean and jerk. I'd never been upside down that I could remember in terms of a handstand, right? I don't think I'd ever skipped, right, with a skipping rope. And mind you, I'm still not great at skipping.
Me neither.
But so not double unders, that's for sure. But there's so many things that I hadn't done before, but I got started. And the reason I got started was not because I wanted to go and compete in CrossFit, and because I didn't have any aspirations to compete at that stage. And you got to remember, I don't come from an athletic background. I was not a champion at anything when I was younger, right? So the reason I started though was because I knew innately that it was going to help me in terms of my longevity, in terms of, because I started when I was, in my early 40s, and I was okay. I thought I was fit. I'd done a bunch of triathlons and all that kind of stuff in my 30s, and I thought, yeah, I'm reasonably fit. But and the reason that I've always, for like since my mid-20s, adapted and changed is because I don't mind getting old, but I just don't want to feel old, right? So, like for me, I think it's about actually starting with that end in mind, right? So forget about what it is that you're going to do, but what is it that's actually going to get you off your ass and doing something? What is going to get you out of bed? So, and it's not the little things, it's the big things, right? And it's the things like, okay, so we've recently had a had a grandchild, amazing little man, and I want to be around for a long time to see that amazing little human grow, and I want to be able to run with him. I want to be able to jump with him. I want to be able to do stuff with him, right? So that's what gets me going, and I think the key with starting anything that you haven't done before is actually understanding what it is that's going to get you going. So, and then think about what your life is going to be like when you've got more energy, when you're sleeping better, when you've got improved mental function, right? When you've got, when you're fitter, when you're stronger, what's your life going to be like? What's it going to mean for you? And one of the things that I do, at the start of every year is I think about what I want my life to look like at the end of the year. And I actually write myself a little statement that's set in the future. So, it starts with the date is 12 months from today. So whatever the date might be. And I just start that statement by, I am so happy and grateful for, right? All of the things that I'll be able to do as a result of actually taking some action, right? So whatever that is for you, just write that statement. So, the date is October the 1st, 2023. And I'm so happy and grateful that I have the energy and vitality to be able to, spend more quality time with my kids, be more productive at work, being able to give more, right? Having more time and energy and space for the people in my life that are important to me. And read that statement for 21 days, get it stuck in your head, and then put it, this is what I do. I'm not saying this is what you have to do, but this is what I do. And then I put it aside and I just go ahead and just like stick with the process. It's just what gets me going. And Alex has actually seen the result of me adapting this method, and it works. And I'm not the inventor of this method, by the way. There's a book called Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And that's one of the main action points that gets taken out of that book. So for me, that's what works for me. So whatever it is that's going to get your ass out of bed and actually doing something, and just start. Forget about like what I said when in relation to CrossFit, how am I ever going to do a snatch, lift a bar from the ground to overhead in one movement and not look like a noob? So I wasn't worried about that. I just actually got started and I just followed the process. So that's what works for me. And Lisa, I know that as obviously a very accomplished athlete yourself, but you've also trained a lot of athletes. And I'm sure that you'd have some really cool insight that you could share with the people on the call as well.
Yeah, and I loved that attitude of just get off the couch and start doing something, because even if you're doing a little bit, you're lapping the person who's just on the couch, and I take that approach to just your motivation too. So like, if people are going, oh, I'm not motivated to go to the gym. No, you never will be. I can tell you that now. You're never going to be motivated to go running. You have to take action, and the motivation follows the action. So what I do, it's about the initiation of the action. So I never feel like going to the gym, I can tell you. I'd much rather go and pound out a hamburger, you know. It's nicer, let's be honest. But I know that I'm going to feel shit after that hamburger. I'm going to regret it, and I'm going to be fatter and unfitter and unhealthier. And if I went to the gym, I'm going to come out feeling better, stronger. So I always just start taking the action. And for me, that means some days I have to trick myself into getting going. I have the luxury of working for myself and running my own companies. So I'm always in my running gear. And so then I have, whenever an opportunity arises during the day, because I have a very, very full-on stressful life, but whenever there's an opportunity, I can go and run, or I can go to the gym, or I'm ready to go, you know. And what I like too is, like, you know, for someone who's extremely busy running companies, looking after a mum who has high needs 24/7 and doing the best that I can for her, I have to look for micro times during the day to do my exercise. So for me, every day getting a sauna and every day having an hour's training isn't probably in the books if I want to optimize my sleep. So I look for little periods during the day sometimes, if that's all I can manage. So it might be only a 5-minute run. It might be doing 10 press-ups between my Zoom calls. It might be, you know, these micro little bits of exercise, they also add up.
Yeah, movement snacks. I
love it. Again, and it's building that stack that, okay, if I've been sitting for too long at my desk, I'll change to a standing desk. And then I'll get up and I'll run to the letterbox and back if that's all I've got. There, you know, I think the attitude that I have is there is always something you can be doing to improve and to get further along. And I never let anything be an excuse for not training. So, you know, whether, you know, with mum, when she had the aneurysm and she was paralyzed on the right side and she had no control over her body, I still exercised her. I pushed and pulled her arms and made sure that her body was getting movement. I put on devices to contract the muscles. I did whatever I could. There is always something that you can do and that you can stack onto. And like Bruce said, you don't have to look at these 20-year-old amazing CrossFitters and go, I have to be like that if I'm going to start. No, you just have to get going. And what you'll find often is that you astound yourself how far you come in a year. Like, people underestimate that what they can do in a year, and they overestimate what they can do in a week, you know. And it's really about just taking that persistent approach to things. So I have a book called Relentless, and that's because it's about being relentless. You have to go in day out, trust the process.
Trust the process, absolutely.
Trust the process. When you don't see any results, just keep on the process. Tweak and change and adapt to optimize it to your environment, or you're doing something wrong, but don't give up on the process. It does work. You know, you just have to keep going and be resilient, and don't expect the results in 5 minutes. Like, I have a hyperbaric clinic that I ran for a couple of years, and I'm about to open another one. And people would come with a stroke, heart attack, or whatever, and they go, right, I hear hyperbaric's really good for heart attacks or cancers or strokes or whatever. And they would come and they'd dive into it, and then I didn't feel any different. No, you won't. This is happening on a cellular level, and you have to go often enough for it to see the change. Arnold Schwarzenegger didn't go to the gym one day and come out looking at that, you know. It's the process, and the same with hyperbaric. It's a process, and you have to trust in that process, that it is happening on a cellular level, even when you can't see the results. And I'm very big on that. Like, you know, with my mum's rehab from being completely disabled in a wheelchair, unable to even feed herself or sit or anything, to being in 2.5 years driving the car, going to the gym 5 days a week, you know, I could see in a miraculous story, and then going through it all again with cancer and seeing her go back to being a baby again, and then see her come forward again at the age of 81. I know the resilience of the human body, and I know the power of the process and the persistence and the relentlessness. And during that process, people would tell me there is no way she's coming back. There is no way she's going to survive. There is nothing you can do. They were wrong. They were very, very wrong. And this is why I'm passionate about what I'm doing here and, you know, what we're talking about, because when you commit to the process and when you go all in, you can achieve unbelievable things.
Yes.
Rant over.
No, it's awesome.
Love it.
Okay, so let's talk very briefly. There's a couple of questions come through which I actually I want to pose to you guys, but real quickly, as we've said, just get started wherever you can. Specifically, we've been talking about sauna. If you don't have a sauna, find somewhere near you that does. They're all over the place now, unless you're somewhere really, really rural. It's worth the drive. Same with cold water. If you can't get into an ocean, start with a cold shower. But even just once a week, try and get to an ice bath or somewhere that does cryo. It's worth it. It is worth it. To what we've been talking about today, you want to live healthier and longer. Doing these things on a regular basis, you're gonna start to experience that. So in terms of exercise, just start moving every day if you can. To what you're saying, Lisa, you've kind of already answered this, but have a good breadth of different things you're doing. Some cardio, some strength, maybe some HIIT. Don't go too hard if you've got chronic fatigue syndrome, as an example. Like, take it easy.
Adrenal stress or something going on. So just careful on that HIIT one if you've got things going on, but do something every day and make a combination and build over time. You'll get back. Same with the sauna. Like, start using sauna. If you're an infrared sauna, they're great because you don't have to start so hot. Start at 45 degrees and then build up from there. Adaptation will set in. As we've seen, some of the science has been done on 78 degrees, 20 minutes for a certain amount of times per week. We're going to reduce our likelihood of cardiac death. So that's what the science has been done on. If you want to mimic that exactly, great. Go and find a steam sauna or a traditional sauna where you can get 80 degrees, 20 minutes, 4 to 7 times a week. But you don't have to. You can start lower. There's still many other benefits that don't happen at that temperature. So for me, it's like 2 to 3 times a week, you're really going to start to notice some changes in your body. In terms of cold stress, 15 seconds, 30 seconds at the end of your shower, just turn the cold on and lengthen from there. If you can get into an ice bath 1 time a week, that's great. There's benefits there. If you can get in more than that, then you're going to start to see some additional things come through. If you can't get to an ice bath, can you get to an ocean? Is it cooler than 20 degrees? Yep, we'll get in there 6, 10, 12 minutes, have a bit of a swim around. You're going to get some of those benefits that we've been talking about. And in terms of the food, to wrap that up as well, eat some stress plants, sprout some broccoli and eat it. You can definitely look into NMN or NR, both precursors to NAD. I'm a fan of NMN. Sounds like you are as well, Lisa, but lots of people take NR. It is a little bit cheaper as well. Resveratrol, you can get some good supplements of that. That's been around for a while. And also, I just thought I'd throw in there, although I'm not a complete advocate for veganism, but vegan diet shown to promote longevity gene activation. So there's some cool stuff there. I wanted to ask a couple of questions. A couple of people have put some questions in. This one I'm going to throw to you, Lisa. This is from Yarrow. Shout out to Yarrow. How you going, mate? What is the importance of order in stacking? That is the order of components: heat, cold, exercise. What order should I put those in? And additionally, what is the importance of timing, i.e. morning versus evening? Yeah, good question. So I'll just give you an example of my stack. So I get up and I do my HIV, do my sleep assessments in the morning before I get out of bed. Then I have a cold shower. So I have a hot shower first and a cold shower for a good, minute and a half, 2 minutes, and longer if I'm being good. The reason I do that first is that it gets my cortisol up and going. Another thing I like to stack on that is to get outside and get some sunshine on my eyes, even if it's for a couple of minutes so don't look into the sun, got to caveat that, but just get the sunlight on your eyes without any sunglasses. And once again, that helps reset that suprachiasmatic nucleus in the brain and tells the brain it's morning, tells the brain to suppress melatonin, bring up the cortisol levels. and that gets you motivated and into action. And that's when we want our cortisol to be high, is in the morning, not late at night. Okay, so doing that, so that's why we don't do the cold therapy at night. And then if you've got the opportunity and not have to go to work or whatever, you could do your training then, or depending. So the question is also, again, I do something called epigenetic testing. So it looks at your DNA and your how your genes are expressing. But that will give me information about what time of the day specifically for you should be training. It will give me information about what type of foods you should be eating for your specific genes, how often you should be eating, what you should be eating, what type of exercise, when to do the exercise, when your hormones are regulating, all of that really genetic specific information. So I, take that with that has to be done specifically for you, right? Obviously. And some people shouldn't be training early in the morning because it causes a stress response that's too high, and you get your cortisol too high. So my husband was an example of this. I used to make him get up at 5 a.m. and do a CrossFit workout with me. And that was perfect for my genetics, but not for his, because that was when his testosterone was regulating. And that early morning stress response meant that his body stayed in a stress response all day, and he put on weight around the middle for his trouble. So there's a bit of an example of why you need to know what your genetics are about, so that you can optimize the stack to your genes, if that makes sense. But on the other end of the day, if you want to follow, like your evolutionary self, you want to be avoiding light stimulation at night, like the blue lights at night. So I wear blue light blocking glasses at night, especially if I have to work on screens because I'm working late or something like that. I also try to calm my body down. So that's when I do my yoga, for example, and that might only be 10-15 minutes of stretching, rolling around on the floor, watching a bit of telly at the same time, calming my system down. Okay. And then I'll have a cup of chamomile tea. And at nighttime, I like to do some of my saunas at nighttime, because that's a good time. I don't go hardcore if I'm doing it in the evening. I just go relatively, mild, but it increases that BDNF and helps me prepare for sleep, because BDNF is also one of those really important things for sleep. So there's a bit of an idea of my stack, but again, it does depend on your genetics. So I hope that answered that one.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think oftentimes the answer to these questions are, it kind of depends. There's so much to consider if we want to get this stuff really, really dialed.
You know what? If you can also just try different things, right? Like if it's not, if getting your genes tested and stuff is not accessible or whatever, for whatever reason, just if you've been training in the morning for a long time, and like try training later on, like try mixing things up a little bit and actually really listening to your body and seeing how you feel, right? Like that's at least you're trying something different, rather than kind of just going, I have to train in the morning, or I have to do this at this time and have to do this time. There's nothing wrong with just mixing it up and kind of seeing what sort of reaction you get, seeing what, if you've been training in the morning and then you train after work or something, and then you're like, feel what your sleep is like, right? Like, are you feeling more energized in the morning after training at night, or are you feeling less energized? Like just mix it up a little bit and actually try things.
Hey, Bruce, like be of N of one and start testing these things. But there is really, different types that require it at different times of the day.
Yeah.
Get your best output, like I'll get my best strength output in the afternoon, or if you're an athlete and you want to really dial that in, then that's where, the benefit of the genetic sort of stuff comes in.
Yeah, for sure. Love it. I have one more question I want to pose to you, Lisa. Rosalind asked, I'm not sure what she's specifically asking about here, but what is the effect after cancer diagnosis? She asked this right initially, so it might have been, maybe we're talking about heat stress.
She's probably talking about sauna here.
Yeah, or should I wait to discuss with my doctor at 6-week post-op appointment? I'm guessing not to go in whilst I'm doing radiation treatment.
Yeah, so Rosalind, maybe reach out to me. You can get my email and just off the guys here, or you can just go to lisatamati.com and contact me via there. I work with a lot of cancer patients. And it's all about the metabolic approach to cancer and doing things in the right combination at the right times and putting different things into the mix. So specifically for cancers, and it depends on your type of cancer and a lot of other factors, hyperbaric oxygen therapy would be one thing that I'd be putting in the mix, but you have to put it in, you know, there's times when you don't do it when you're having chemo, etc. There's the diet changes. That's the biggest key. Alongside working with right natural health supplements to block different pathways. With the metabolic approach to cancer, we're trying to block different pathways of feeding the tumours. So yeah, it's a bit more than just the sauna part of the argument. I have a book called What Your Oncologist Isn't Telling You, and it is this big interview series that I've done with 16 of the top researchers in cancer. So I'd say reach out to me might be a better answer there for Rosalind. Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you. Okay. We said at the start of this, we'd like everyone to come out of this with a few action items. So I just want to put that out there for everyone watching right now is, what are your action items coming out of this? Are you going to start to introduce cold therapy into your routine? I know we've got a lot of sauna lovers in the room, so you might already be saunaing, but maybe you start to bring in a really hot sauna session once a week, like a really like maximum temperature kind of experience. Maybe you're going to start to use the sauna more regularly. And so I pose it to both of you guys, Bruce and Lisa, if there was one action item coming out of this, what would it be for you guys? And then I'll model it. So for me, if I was to add one thing in, I'm doing a lot of work in the garden at the moment. I want to grow some broccoli and I want to do some broccoli sprouts. It's very easy for me to get that going. So that'll be my one action item coming out of this. I'll pass it on to Bruce if you had one action item, mate.
I think for me, just trying, obviously I sauna a lot, but just trying some different things with the sauna. So normally I sauna in the morning pretty hot. So yeah, try 1 or 2 evenings a week using sauna and see how that affects my recovery and my sleep, which I monitor, by the way.
Nice.
Yeah.
Lisa.
Yeah. Oh, you've reminded me to go and get my broccoli sprouts bought again. So get that going again. We didn't cover this, but I'm very big on culturing, using cultures and fermenting your own food now. So I've been doing that for just a few weeks and trying to rebuild the microbiome, which is another big piece of the puzzle, right? And loving that process, fermenting my own vegetables using kefir and starter cultures that I use. And that's been a really interesting process. And yeah, so that's something we didn't cover, but something I'm pretty passionate about now too, after doing it for a little while. I'm going to go and get more cold water. In fact, I'm probably going to grab mum and take it down the beach and, well, I'll stick her legs in the water. I probably won't dump her in the middle of a winter and in the cold. I do in the summer, but I won't be that mean to her today, but I might jump in myself. So yeah, you got me motivated for that cold stuff again.
You're a hard taskmaster, Lisa. I don't know what it's like down where you are, but it's like Auckland today it's just raining and it's windy, and I can, you know what, normally I can see the water from here. I can't even see it. It's that miserable.
No, it's the same here, mate. It's bloody ugly, but I'm motivated after the session to go and jump in some cold water and get my shit together.
Nice. Okay, coming towards the end, I want to talk, I'll skip that. Found Space, we have amazing infrared saunas. We've been doing it for a long time. We've sold over 10,000 across Australia and New Zealand. And if you want to work with a sauna company that actually has the kind of conversations that we've had today, that is what we do at Found Space. We help people take their health to a higher level. If you're in New Zealand, you'll be able to chat with Bruce. If you're in Australia, we've got an amazing team here. And Lisa, I just want to pass it over to you if there was anything that you wanted to share with the people, and also an opportunity to share how they can get in touch with you and these sort of things.
Yeah, thanks, Alex. I appreciate the opportunity. Look, head over to lisatamati.com. That's sort of the hub for all the stuff I do. I have a curated anti-aging supplement range. So you can see all my supplements via my shop there, including the NMN and the resveratrol and 1,000 other ones that I'm very passionate and into, because I'm desperate to slow the aging process down. I do work one-on-one with clients in that health optimization space, work with people with cancers and head injuries and Alzheimer's and strokes and things like that, but also with people that are wanting to just optimize and be in that prevention space. I love being in that prevention space more than anything. I do epigenetics and DNA testing, that sort of thing. So, and I have a podcast that I'd love you to come and listen to. Alex has already been on it. Bruce has been on my YouTube channel. So we're sharing in the family here, but we love it. My podcast is called Pushing the Limits, and it's a globally top 200 ranked show that's been going for nearly 7.5 years. And I get, world leading experts in to share the latest in information. So I'd love you to check that out. Go and have a listen to Alex's wonderful episode there too. So yeah, that's me in a nutshell. You can follow me, of course, on Instagram at Lisa Tamati. My YouTube channel has over 600 videos, including a lot of the ultra marathon docos. So anybody wants to reach out to me to find out anything like that, or Rosalind, if you want to reach out to me about the cancer stuff, hyperbaric oxygen, that's one of my pet things. Just head over to lisatamati.com and you'll see all the mischief I get up to over there.
Guys, Lisa's podcast is amazing. I've been following Lisa for a couple of years now, and listened to a bunch of those episodes. That's really cool. And of course, Alex, let's not forget the Finding Space podcast, which is also pretty bloody good.
Yeah, and you need to get me on there. You haven't got me on there.
It's gonna happen. It's gonna happen
soon.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you to everyone who has tuned in. I really appreciate, now more than ever, an hour and a half of people's time. I'm really, really grateful for that. So thank you to everyone tuning in. A big thanks from me to Bruce. Thank you, mate, for joining this webinar. It's been great having you here, and I think we're going to be doing a few more of these together. So thank you so much, mate.
It's been a pleasure, and I feel honored to be on this webinar with two amazing individuals in Alex and Lisa. So thank you.
Thanks, man. And Lisa, thank you so much for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure. And your wisdom and your information is amazing. So thank you so much.
I really appreciate you. And I love having this, collaborations that we're doing, helping each other in the business side and on the health side. It's fantastic. I just love hanging out with cool people doing cool shit. So
love it.
I wish I had more time doing that and less of the other stuff.
Awesome. All right. Well, thanks to everyone tuning in. Everyone have a great rest of your Saturday. Happy saunaing, happy ice bathing, happy NMNing, happy sulforaphaning, happy exercising. And we'll see you all soon.
Go well, team.
Guys.
Cheers.